Question 9. Naturalist. The recent claims that the Tasmanian tiger is not extinct are false. The Tasmanian tiger's natural habitat was taken over by sheep farming decades ago, resulting in the animal's systematic elimination from the area. Since then, naturalists working in the region have discovered no hard evidence of its survival, such as carcasses or tracks. In spite of alleged sightings of the animal, the Tasmanian tiger no longer exists. All right, so first step, argument or facts. Clearly, we have an argument. The naturalist's conclusion is the first sentence. The recent claims that the Tasmanian tiger is not extinct are false. And how do we know that? Well, its natural habitat was taken over by sheep farming, resulting in the animal's systematic elimination from the area. No evidence of survival, carcasses, or tracks. So in spite of alleged sightings, this tiger no longer exists. So now moving to the question stem, which one of the following is an assumption on which the naturalist argument depends? Assumption on which the argument depends. This is a strengthened with necessary premise. Question stem. So now not only are we looking for an answer choice that strengthens this argument, we're looking for an answer choice that is also necessary to the argument. And if you notice, if a premise is necessary to an argument's conclusion, we know sufficient and necessary, contrapositive would tell us that if we get rid of that premise, it would destroy the conclusion. So that is going to be our strategy here. Let's take a look at A. Sheep farming drove the last Tasmanian tigers to starvation by chasing them from their natural habitat. Does that strengthen this argument? And it clearly does. It explains how this sheep farming resulted in the systematic elimination of the Tasmanian tigers. So it seems to definitely strengthen the argument. But the question now is a necessary premise to the argument's conclusion? And so to check that, we would negate A. Sheep farming did not drive the last Tasmanian tigers to starvation by chasing them from their natural habitat. And you notice that when you negate A, nothing happens to the conclusion. That's fine if it didn't do it to the last tigers. What if it did it to all the other tigers? Maybe the last few tigers died for some other reason, and it wasn't starvation. So A, while it does strengthen, is not required for the naturalist's argument. So A would be eliminated. B, some scavengers in Tasmania are capable of destroying tiger carcasses without a trace. And you notice what B does is it weakens the argument because it casts doubt on the evidence that we haven't seen any carcasses. B says, well, there's some scavengers in Tasmania that can destroy these carcasses without leaving any trace. So just because we haven't seen any carcasses doesn't mean the Tasmanian tiger no longer exists. So B actually weakens the argument, so B is definitely out. C, every naturalist working in the Tasmanian tiger's natural habitat has looked systematically for evidence of the tiger's survival. And you notice C clearly strengthens, because if every naturalist in the area has been looking for evidence of this tiger's survival, and none of them have discovered any hard evidence, such as carcasses or tracks, well, then that clearly strengthens the argument. But now let's make sure C is required. So every naturalist working would become not every naturalist working in the Tasmanian tiger's natural habitat has looked systematically for evidence of the tiger's survival. And you notice that does not destroy the conclusion, because not every means that at least one naturalist did not, but what if 99% of them did, right? So not every does not destroy this argument. So C, while it does strengthen, is not necessary, so C is out. D, the Tasmanian tiger did not move and adapt to a different region in response to the loss of habitat. And you notice D clearly strengthens, because the first premise is that the natural habitat was taken over by sheep farming, resulting in the animal's systematic elimination from the area. Well, D tells us that they didn't go somewhere else and prosper. Right? So that clearly strengthens this argument that the Tasmanian tiger are extinct, or that the claims that they're not extinct are false. So now let's negate D to make sure that it's also necessary So D would become the Tasmanian tiger did move and adapt to a different region in response to the loss of habitat. And you notice, what does that do to this argument? It completely destroys it. So D would be the correct answer. It strengthens and is necessary to the argument. And you notice the problem with A and C, while they strengthened, they were not necessary. But again, let's just make sure, checking E, those who have reported sightings of Tasmanian tiger are not experienced naturalists. Again, completely irrelevant. What difference does it make if they are or aren't? I guess you could argue that E strengthens because those who have reported them are not experienced naturalists, somehow assuming that if you're not an experienced naturalist, you don't know what a Tasmanian tiger looks like. Really doesn't do anything. And when you negate it, those who have reported sightings of the Tasmanian tiger are experienced naturalists. Great, what difference does that make? So E clearly does not follow. D again would be the correct answer because not only does it strengthen, D is necessary to the naturalist's argument, and that is a strengthen with necessary premise, the most difficult type of question that appears on the logical reasoning section.